come to school and it's quiet and it's just depressing. It's quite depressing not hearing the kids' voices and having, you know, even the squabbles. We miss the squabbles, and we turn the radio on and we sit, the adults, and sometimes you hear by yourself, and that's particularly depressing and particularly lonely.
Each morning by 9 o'clock, Sharon Middleton turns up to school. Only there are no children to teach. Her last 2 students were sent to a bigger school in the district. For over a month now, she's been waiting for word from the Ministry of Education to close.
I think that's a bit of a perception out there that something must have gone wrong, where nothing did. It's just we ran out of kids.
And now the small community of Awaroa is about to run out of its only building.
They don't want to spend money on fixing it up, so they'll probably bulldoze it, and sheep will be where we're sitting right now.
This is all that remains of another school in the area that closed in 1965. Its pupils at the time were absorbed into Awaroa School. It's a standing reminder of a phenomenon that's been taking place for centuries, rural to urban migration. Awaroa paints a scene in a bigger picture. Virtually all of New Zealand's remote rural areas will experience population decline in the next 20 years. Add on top of this an ageing population as baby boomers go into retirement, and the once green landscape starts looking increasingly grey. For the first time, the number of people over 65 in our rural communities will effectively double, and there will be more deaths than births. And their grandchildren are leaving for cities with jobs and universities.
What you've got now is rural regions that are lacking kids, they're lacking young people in the, say, 20 to 24 year age groups, and if you don't have those people, the whole thing just sort of spirals down to a picture of an ageing population, a dramatically ageing population out in the rural areas. Yeah, when
Natalie Jackson grew up in a small rural town and now works as a professor of demography at Waikato University. The outlook for areas like the one she grew up in concerns her.
That's a really worrying thing. Now, school closures are actually critically important. So the school is the heart of a rural community. Once you close a school, more people will move away. The rest of your dynamic young population will go.
Mark Humphreys continued the family tradition by going to Awaroa School and taking over the family farm. His father David went to the school the year it opened and took over the farm from his father. Now his family's future in the community weighs upon his shoulders.
I'm the 3rd generation on this farm, and that's part of a small part of why we do it. One day one of our children might want to take over the land at one point.
Mark wasn't the only parent battling to save the school.
As a community, we continued to support it through fundraising for 2 or 3 years, but you were never going to get it back to where it needed to go.
Charlie Patterson was at the school in the mid-60s. He remembers it in its heyday.
You know, we've had some hellish good times there, and we've met some very good friends, and it was a great way of at least once or twice a year the community getting together and basically having a barbecue, or it might be at the school prize giving, and we had Father Christmas turn up and that type of thing. The reality is you have to face the inevitable.
Since then, he's seen the community deteriorate, in some respects, quite literally.
They raised their family here, but none of their children are now farming. And I think that's an issue in itself. They've all gone off and done other things, so eventually chose to just close it up and leave it.
The day after we spoke, Charlie's son James returned home from his OE, having driven tractors outside of London for over a year.
When I was his age, I was the eldest son, and I was pretty well told, as a lot of us were, that you're the eldest son, you'll be farming. This will be yours one day.
So do you have plans to take over the farm?
I mean, I could come back to the farm and that's all good, but after, say, 10, 15 years, I'm just going to get over it and probably end up selling up or something like that.
In the end, you could say what's happening in the remote rural areas is part of a really big global force of agglomeration that kind of starts with the main big cities in the world and ends up in the rural black bloc, say, of Southland or of the far north in New Zealand.
So you could say, as a general statement, the bigger the city, the faster its growth, and the smaller the rural town, the more rapid its decline.
That would be a fair representation of what's going on globally, yeah.
As a nation of farming, it may come as a surprise to hear that New Zealand is one of the most urbanised countries in the world. Over half our population growth occurs here in Auckland, and this is projected to increase to 2/3. Once other cities have taken their slice of the population pie, our rural areas will be lucky to get any crumbs.
For me, it's worrying if towns and local governments, for example, don't really understand what's going on, that all they need to do is build a new swimming pool and they'll entice people to their region. But what people don't realise is the real impact of declining birth rates over the last, it's been over half a century that birth rates have been falling.
We went to meet the Mayor of the Central Hawke's Bay, Peter Butler, to see how much of a handle he had on the situation. Have you got any measures or plans in place to address a changing population in your region?
Nothing comes to mind. Changing population. We're looking after our younger generation. At the moment, a great big all-weather turf is being proposed for Waipakarau. This is for our younger people.
He says he doesn't believe figures released by Statistics New Zealand that show a population decline in all ages except for over 65s in his region.
For them to say we've lost 140 is a load of, yeah, I'm not too sure how to say it, but it's a load of something, and I take no notice of it.
I think you've got to look at the bigger picture and recognise there is a need for this type of little school, family orientated. If you're achieving success with even one kid, you've made a difference in a life.
But will these views from people like Sharon be enough to ensure the survival of communities like Awaroa, or are they destined to become yet another dot on the landscape?
Towns grow up and they can't always go on. They exist for a time, and we have to take that longer view of it.
The world is full of bleak numbers. It's our challenge to do something about it. I don't think we should be defeatist and just say, hey, this is terrible, but we can't do anything about it. I think the benefit of these projections is that they are a warning signal and they allow people to actually act upon them.
You can't bash your head against a brick wall. We all know what we would love to have happen. We'd love our local schools and that to continue existing, but you've got to have the kids there to make it work. And it's just the way things are now.
So what do you do all day here?
We just wait at this stage, and wait and wait and wait.
Indeed, it's only a matter of time until the lights at Awaroa School, at least, are turned off for the last time.